On September 20th, 2010, residents on the eastern coast of Newfoundland prepared for the arrival of Hurricane Igor. Within 24 hours, it became the worst storm of the modern era to strike the province. Hi, I'm Chris May, writer, producer, and host of This Day in Weather History, now in its second year from the Weather Network in Canada. Hurricane Igor was, for its time, the most destructive tropical cyclone on record to strike Newfoundland. This is where we start this day in weather history. So yesterday was a really big story that had a lot of unpacking, a lot of really complicated layers involved. I mean, there was the 9/11 terror attacks on the U.S. that landed 38 planes in Gander, Newfoundland, who were still there when Gabrielle hit the province. There was record rain all over the place and flooding that filled basements like SeaWorld aquariums. But it was also apparently considered to have been just a grazing by hurricane standards. Well, today, almost a decade later to the day of that event, things got really, really real. It got started from a broad area of low pressure on September 6th. It was recognized as a tropical depression on September 8th and strengthened into a tropical storm between then and September 12th when explosive intensification took place and Igor reached Category 4 status. Now things were off to the races. This would make it the strongest cyclone of the season with maximum sustained winds of 155 miles per hour or 250 kilometers per hour, but as is commonly the case with most storms of this kind, started to enter an area that would prove unfavorable for any more strengthening, at least for now. On September 20th, as Igor was only hours away from its arrival in the Atlantic Canadian provinces, the Canadian Hurricane Center, or CHC, issued tropical storm watches and warnings for southern Newfoundland. Welcome to year 2 of this podcast. Right now, you're listening to the full version of today's story on your favorite podcast provider, but there's also the daily podcast video short. They're shot right here in my podcast recording studio, so you get that perspective, but oftentimes they will include visuals from that day's event from when it happened in weather history. So after listening to the full story, go check out the podcast video short on television or online anytime at theweathernetwork.com/weather history. Then, at impact, meter-high storm surge was reported and more than 200 millimeters of rain fell over only 2 days. The combination of a stationary front in place over the region and significant moisture from Hurricane Igor coming in from the Gulf resulted in torrential rainfall across parts of eastern Newfoundland, leading to widespread flooding. And the widespread nature of the heavy rain ranked the storm as a 1-in-100-year event. Now, in addition to knocking out power to 70,000 hydro customers, several rivers rose to record levels across the Bonavista and Burin peninsulas. In Bonavista, more than 10 inches or 250 millimeters of rain was estimated to have fallen between September 20th and the 21st. Entire bridges, homes, and portions of roads were destroyed. A 100-foot, that's a 30-meter section of the Trans-Canada Highway in Terra Nova National Park was severely damaged. This created a very large chasm, and it disconnected the main population of Newfoundland from the rest of the island. A bridge washout on the Burin Peninsula, that's the peninsula to the south, left 20,000 people cut off from the rest of Newfoundland Island. Roughly 150 communities were temporarily isolated as all roads leading to them were severely damaged or completely washed out. More than 30 communities declared a state of emergency and homeowners filed more than $65 million of insurance claims within just the first 2 weeks after the storm. In response to the widespread floods, and having seen this happen before, Newfoundland Power Incorporated warned anyone who still had power the next day, that would be on the 21st, to turn off their main electrical panel if water entered their basement or risk catastrophe and even potential death. Thanks to precaution and a history of storms like this, there was only one storm-related death. Another example of Newfoundland knowing exactly what to do when things need to be done with precision. In all, losses from the hurricane were pegged at $200 million. making it the costliest cyclone in Newfoundland history and the worst tropical storm to hit Newfoundland since Hurricane 2 back in 1935, obviously before they introduced naming. But it was Igor that set its sights on the Canadian Atlantic province on September 20th, 2010, this day in weather history. Tomorrow is September 21st. As of September 21st, 2018, it had been 120 years since a tornado rated at F3 or stronger had touched down anywhere in Canada this late in the year. This is the first day of fall, man. Tornadoes at this time of the year, not cool. So we're going to find out what happened and how it went down tomorrow on This Day in Weather History with me, your host, Chris May.